Today we're sewing up a great free summer pattern. These are the Piper shorts by Sewciety. They're a paper bag style shorts with an integrated cuff and an optional tie belt. Just a couple notes before we get started. I did use French seams for this video, but keep in mind that you can just sew regular seams, placing your material right sides together and sewing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then serging to finish. But I will say that the French seams come in particularly handy for this pattern, especially when we go to do the cuffs, because when we go to fold the material up at the end, you'll have nice finished French seams instead of an exposed serged seam. And the other note for this pattern is that when I read the reviews before making these shorts, I did see that a lot of people had commented that the tops of the shorts were quite high and the pocket placement needed just a little adjustment. So before I cut out my fabric for this project, I did adjust the height for the front and the back piece by 2 inches. And I also lowered my pocket placement by 1.5 inches. Otherwise, the construction of this shorts is exactly the same as you'll see in the Sewciety pattern instructions. You can find this pattern on the Sewciety website. I've left a link for you below so that you can check out all the details, grab a copy, and sew it along with me. Cut out all your fabric, mark your notches, and let's get started. Let's start by attaching our 2 front pieces. I'm going to be using French seams for this project as recommended in the pattern. So instead of placing these pieces right sides together, I'm placing them wrong sides together. And I'm going to clip along the rise. And for the first step of my French seam, I'm going to sew as pinned with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now that my rise has been sewn with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, I'm going to flip the pieces so that they're right sides together and give this seam a good press. And once it's nice and pressed, you can sew this seam again with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then follow the same exact steps with your back pieces wrong sides together to do your French seam for your back rise. Now let's prepare our pocket pieces to attach to the back pant. We're going to take both pocket pieces to the ironing board and fold down the top edge by 1/2 inch and give it a press, and then fold it 1 additional inch and give that a press. And now that I've pressed both pockets 1/2 inch and then 1 inch, I'm going to take them to my sewing machine and edge stitch close to the bottom fold of both pockets. And then take your pockets back to your ironing board and fold all of the remaining edges to the wrong side by 1/2 inch. And now we're ready to attach our pockets to the back of our shorts. I've transferred my pocket markings from my pattern piece to the back of my shorts, and this is where I'm going to place the tops of my pockets and pin in place. Do the same thing to attach your pocket to your other back pant panel, and then we're going to take it to our machine and edge stitch along the side and bottom edges all around the pockets. Now that our pockets are attached to the back piece, we can attach the front and back pieces together. Start by sewing our side seams. I'm going to be doing French seams here, so I'm going to place them wrong sides together and pin these front and back pieces together along this side seam. Sew the French seam in the same exact way as we did for our rises. First sewing as pinned with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Once that's sewn, I'm going to flip this seam so that the pieces are facing right sides together and give that seam a good press. And once this is right sides together and pressed, go ahead and sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And repeat to attach your other side seam as well. And then we're going to sew a French seam for our inseam as well, placing your front and back pieces together and matching your seam. Sew with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, flip, press, and then sew again at 3/8. Now we can start working on our waistband. Take this to your ironing board and you're going to press the top edge of your pant to the wrong side by 1/2 inch and then press it once again 2 inches. So now that I've pressed the top edge of my shorts 1/2 inch to the inside and then an additional 2 inches to the inside, I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and edge stitch all along the inner fold all the way around. But when I get back to where I started my stitching, I'm going to leave a gap of about 1 inch for when I insert my elastic later. So I've gone ahead and stitched this fold down all the way around, and I've left a gap in my stitching here to insert the elastic. Now we're going to sew all around the waistband once again, 3/4 inch above the stitching that we just sewed. And that will give us our casing for our elastic. Sew 3/4 inch away from your edge stitching all the way around, and there's no need to leave a gap in this stitching. I've cut a piece of 1/2 inch wide elastic exactly to my waist measurement, and using a safety pin attached to one end, I'm going to feed it through the opening in my casing. And once I've pulled my elastic all the way through, I'm going to overlap the ends by about 1/2 inch and zigzag stitch back and forth a few times to secure. And then pull that elastic all the way through and edge stitch that opening closed following your original stitching line. Now to hem the bottom of the shorts, I've taken it to my ironing board and I pressed it up to the right side of the fabric by 1.5 inches. Now that I've established this width, I'm going to fold it again the same width 2 more times. And then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and stitch in the ditch of the side seam to hold that fold in place. And I'm also going to stitch in the ditch of my inseam as well. And once you've stitched in the ditch of both sides of your fold, repeat for the other bottom of your shorts as well. If you'd like to create a little bit more stability for that fold for the center back and the center front, you can take a needle and thread and do a little bit of hand tacking from the inside of your shorts, putting your needle through the back of the shorts where the top of the fold is on the other side, and allow your needle to go through a couple layers of this fold, but not through the outermost layer so that your stitches are not visible from the outside. You can do that for both of your center fronts and both of your center backs, and your shorts will have a little extra stability to keep this fold. And now the very last step is to create our tie belt. I've gone ahead and pressed my tie belt in half, wrong sides together, and now I'm going to sew all along the long raw edge and one short edge with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, making sure to keep one short edge open for turning. And then you can clip the corner of the short edge that you sewed shut. Turn your belt right side out. And then give your tie a really good press. Turn in the raw edge of your open short edge by about 1/2 inch. And top stitch to close that edge, and you are all done with your shorts. Thank you so much for watching this sew along. Make sure you check out my other videos for more great sewing inspiration, and I'll see you in the next video.